the board. County Administrator. Sorry, I got thrown off when you said CEO Mallon. Kevin Mallon, Yuba County Administrator, for those in the audience. So before the board today is another step in that process that we've been working towards to make sure that we have equal representation in our 5 supervisorial districts. And I have a little PowerPoint presentation here to just kind of revisit where we're at in the process and then next steps moving forward. So by way of background for today, you know, we're gonna kind of go over what's precipitating the need to go through this redistricting process, what growth has occurred, what growth do we anticipate, factors that will influence the redistricting process, and then most importantly, making sure that the public is aware of what's going on so that we gather public input before the board makes a decision on how best to redraw the lines for these boundaries. All right, so and sorry if this sounds repetitive, but I think we've talked about it the last couple times. You know, we have the census once every 10 years, and it's very important that as a result of that census that we have equal representation, and even down at the county level. And so that means that we need to revisit our supervisorial district boundaries to make sure that we have equal population. Now there is some kind of plus or minus that's allowed, the kind of the 5% rule, but as I'll show you here in a minute, we had enough population growth that we're not within that 5% rule on most of our current districts as they're drawn. All right, there's also been some legislative changes at the state level. I'm wanting to make sure that the process is as open as possible to the public, fair, equitable. And so part of that is ensuring that there's adequate workshops where the public has an opportunity to voice their opinion on the process. And so that's one of the reasons for the workshop today. And then also why we have our website that we've created for this to make sure that we have robust public interaction. Now, there was also, when these laws were enacted at the state level, that was pre-COVID, and they thought we were going to have quite a bit more time. And unfortunately, the Census Bureau definitely got behind on getting the information out to jurisdictions so that we could do the redistricting process, which has kind of truncated things for us, but we're still trying to meet the intent of the legislation that was passed by the state. So we have federal laws that are influencing the redistricting process. The state has added to that. But ultimately, when you look at redistricting principles, you know, we're trying to minimize that, you know, that shift so that we don't just throw out the current district boundaries and just start all over and rearrange things. You know, that there's logic to it, kind of respecting continuity in office. And then also, we talked about this earlier in the board meeting today, communities of interest. Even Yuba County itself, we feel like our county is a community of interest with other like counties. And that was a letter the board approved earlier today to voice its concern as part of the state's redistricting process. All right, so our timeline, we received the information from the Census Bureau back in September. We had our first public meeting in September as well. And then that brings us to today's meeting, another public meeting. We have released some kind of draft maps. We call them examples, options, whatever you want to call it. But what those maps represent, and I'll get to them in a minute, is kind of our first stab at how to ensure we have that equal representation. We illustrated them in a couple of different ways, and I'll walk through those with the board later. But since those maps have been released as part of our agenda packet, we've already began to receive public input even before this workshop today via our website. I believe we've had over 20 emails come in from residents, voicing concerns about, hey, I live in this community and I want to be attached, I want to be represented by this district, and this is why. So, which is interesting, right? Which is good that we have the public interaction already this early on in the process. And so the goal is to continue that dialogue with the public, gather that public input along with input from the board today, and then package that input up and have another public meeting on December 6th, where the board considers all of this information and provides staff direction on which of the options that are in play the board prefers, and then staff will finalize that map and have that available for public review for a minimum of 7 days before the board adopts the new district boundaries on December 14th. Now, I know that's kind of a truncated timeline. It's unfortunate just because we had to wait till September to get the information from the Census Bureau, but we do have a hard deadline of December 15th to have new boundaries in place so that candidates that are ready to file know whether or not they reside in the district they want to file in. So anyway, so that's kind of our timeline. So why we need to redistrict, I mentioned this earlier, that 5% rule. So with our current population, does this up at the top kind of, I guess you can see it okay. You can kind of see the column to the far right gives you an idea of how far each district is currently drawn, the deviation in population from what would be the average. Our population grew by nearly 10,000 people from the 2010 census to the 2020 census, and it didn't grow evenly, throughout the 5 districts. Some grew quite a bit more than others, and so you have the ideal population count for a district would be 16,300 people. I guess the closest to that would be District 2 in its current configuration. But if you look at the other ones, we have, like for example, District 3, which is below that. District 5 is the most below that ideal. It grew the least over the last decade. And then you can see District 4 with 18,500 people grew the most over the last decade, followed closely by District 1. So the point of this slide is just to illustrate that if the board did nothing from the standpoint of redrawing the boundaries, we would be out of balance as far as that equal representation. So something has to be done. I know there was a conversation with the Sutter County Board of Supervisors at a meeting recently on redistricting, and actually Sutter County grew so little over the last decade that they actually have that as an option, that they could leave their boundaries as is and still be within that 5%. But for Yuba County, we've had a significant amount of growth. All right. So I just wanted to provide a little background on what's going to go, our thought process that we're going through before we present some potential maps to balance out the population. One to take into consideration, this is the county's general plan land use diagram. And I just want to have this as a point of reference. The county, when it adopted the general plan back in 2011, really created a valley growth boundary. And really that's where you're going to have the urban level of growth, kind of your high volume growth, which is indicated in a blue line along the map. Now, all of the green that's in Yuba County, that's our natural resources area. That's area where you're really going to see minimal growth. That's your ag land, your forest lands, grazing lands, et cetera. And then in yellow are the rural communities, primarily in our foothills and then upper mountainous regions. So just wanted to, that's kind of a frame of reference as you kind of think through where the county has grown over the last decade and where it's going to continue to grow. All right, the other thing to take into consideration when we look at changing boundaries is considering all of the other special districts that also have to go through an election process, and where and this is really important for our elections office. You don't want to inadvertently move a supervisorial district boundary where it crosses slightly with another special district that has an election, and you have to have a special ballot type just for maybe like half of a street or part of a street. So we do our best to try and reconcile as we adjust supervisorial district boundaries, that they coincide as best we can with special district boundaries. And so this map, and I have this map we can zoom in on if we need to in the future, but it just kind of illustrates that there's quite a few special districts that have elections. You have fire districts and community service districts, et cetera, and school districts. All right, so with those considerations, and I'm gonna cruise through the process part of this here, but I want to show the two illustrations, the two options that we've come up with using the population growth and considering the special districts, and I'll zoom into these in detail in the future. But I just wanted to illustrate here on this the PowerPoint specifically the population count that this example here, which we called option 1, we were able to keep each of the 5 districts very close to that 16,000, 300 number, so that we would have equal population representation. And then also we were tracking other demographic information as well as we put this together. And then moving on to option 2, same thing. We were trying our best to stay true to that equal population representation. All right, and so I'm going to get back to these in detail in a minute, but because it's too hard to see on that PowerPoint slide. We were able to zoom in at the parcel area, so I'll do that in a minute. So the maps we actually have up on our county website right now for the public to look at, and they're in and I'll pull it up here in a minute. They're in an interactive form. You can zoom in and really see down to the street level, where the district boundaries are. And then for those that have an opinion about one of the options that's out there, or maybe have another option that we haven't considered yet that they would like to offer up, the public has the ability. There's different tools out there that are available to them, and so we have links on that website where you can actually pull up one of those options and then modify it, and then you could resubmit that to the county as Joe Citizen, that hey, have you considered my option here that is a potential. So trying our best to have the ability for the public to weigh in on this process. All right, so get involved is the bottom line on that. All right, so maybe before I welcome public input, I'm going to stop sharing that one, and I'm going to pull up those interactive maps so I can talk in a little more detail about them. Let's see here. So let me walk through. Yes, and I'll zoom in here in a minute, and maybe I'll just walk through districts 1, 2, 3, 4 at a time. And so this is a link that's on our county website right now, so the public can do the same thing. And so the pink, purple, whatever you want to call that color, I'm not a color guy, but this would represent the kind of the boundary of District 1 in our example 1, and it follows the levee and then follows Hamilton Smartsville Road out to, let's see here. So it's kind of the edge of this is an open field right here north of Yuba College for reference. The Sunshine and Sunset roads kind of dead end into it. And then it would come down to Lind Avenue, North Beale Road, and then down Griffith. I'm sorry, down Linda Avenue. I got ahead of myself. That comes on over here to Griffith, and then down Griffith to Earl. And then cross. Oh, okay. Here, let me zoom back out just a little bit. Yes. I believe that's somewhere in this area. Yes. Yes. And so under this, and I'll get to it in a minute, in order to balance, and this is really a District 2 driven issue where District 2 years ago was primarily the city of Marysville. City of Marysville has a population of about 12,000 people. Well, now with the 2020 census, District 2 needs to represent 16,300 people. So you need to find 4,300 people outside of the city of Marysville. So this option would continue into the West Linda area, District 2, to pick up enough population to meet that 16,300. And by doing that, it kind of influences the footprint of District 1 as illustrated there. And I guess I kind of jumped to District 2, but District 2, there really isn't anything changed on this particular option from what the current boundary is, other than the extension further into West Linda to make that population. And this option for what it means for District 3, I'm going to zoom back out, kind of a larger footprint. Is in my PowerPoint presentation, as District 3 needed to pick up population, and the primary area in this option for District 3 to kind of pick that up is in the northern Plumas Lake area, kind of the Wheeler Ranch subdivision area, actually all the way down to the southern border of District 3 would then be at Algodon Road. As it comes around here, if you can see on my cursor, over to the levee. And by doing that, as we discussed earlier, District 4 really needed to shrink geographically, and so it would lose that northern part of Plumas Lake in this particular option, and then be very similar, I think, for the rest of it. It'd still represent the southern portion of Plumas Lake, the city of Wheatland, Campfire West, up to the kind of the southern boundary of the Smartsville area. And then District 5 would, in this particular option, would have, it would be very similar to the current representation, but again, District 5 needed to pick up population. And so where it picked up most of its population was in the eastern side of Linda. So I'm going to zoom in here. So as we talked through that boundary for District 1, that becomes the boundary between District 1 and District 5. So you have the eastern portion of Linda being represented in District 5. All right, I'm going to zoom back out. So would the board like me to pause here, or would you want me to walk through the second option?
Maybe walk through the second option, yeah.
Okay. All right, and I may need some technical assistance here because Russ, where's example 2? Okay, no, not that one, not that one. I'll just go to this one, example 2. There we go. Okay. Do I want to open this in my new map viewer? All right. There we go. All right. So I will walk through. Maybe I'll start with District 2 on this one because that one kind of influenced quite a bit of the changes between option 1 and option 2. So on this particular option, what was looked at, and it was kind of based on early input from the public from our September meeting, there was residents in the District 10 area that voiced their concern about representation and would like to, and felt most, I guess, assimilated most with the District 2 representation in the city of Marysville. So So we took a look at that as an option to see what that did. Now that it kind of has a cascading effect. Obviously, you move the one district. So what we did on this option is instead of District 2 picking up population in West Linda, it instead picks up its population to the north of the city of Marysville. And as you can see, the footprint to the north of Marysville, it's very rural. And so the footprint, it has to be much larger in order to pick up that roughly 4,000 people. And so in order to have equal population representation, you have the city of Marysville, the District 10 area, the community of Hallwood, and then the Las Quintas subdivision that's off of Loma Rica Road. And I'll kind of zoom in from here as you head into, so then you have a boundary between District 2 and District 5 here that comes up to Honcut Road, and then it follows, this is Prairie Creek, down to Loma Rica Road. This is kind of the Hill Road area, Vicky Drive. That still stays in District 5. So it comes down Loma Rica Road and then follows, I believe this is another creek or water body, and then a section line over here to Fruitland Road. And then it follows Marysville Road, the west side of Marysville Road from Fruitland Road on down to Highway 20. And then along Highway 20, this boundary here is essentially the county's Sycamore Ranch Park, and then follows along the river.
So I would get the Unz Festival.
You get
The Unz Festival, yes. And then also it picks up the north side of Hamilton Smartville Road from Brophy Road down into the community of Linda. So like this is Trevor Drive, that area right there. And this is getting back to trying to have equal population representation. So by having all of the population, I guess, growth north of Marysville, we just wanted to illustrate what that would look like.
Could you bring that in a little closer on that?
Yes. I'm going to get to your district, District 1 next. But I just wanted to, it obviously that shift to the north really pushes around. Now District 5 needs to pick up the population that was lost north of Marysville, in addition to the population it needed to gain to match with the other districts. And so which drives into District 1, District 5. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I'm definitely going to. District 1 needing to pull in more of East Linda. And so under this scenario, this is a drainage ditch that separates the neighborhood and Yuba Community College. And this is a drainage ditch here. And I believe this is also kind of another drainage ditch that kind of separates neighborhoods. And that was used as a boundary between District 5 and District 1. And
do you still live in your district, Andy?
Huh?
Do you still live in your district?
Barely.
Yes, but what I wanted to illustrate is by District 2 moving to the north of Marysville and no longer occupying West Linda, this represents kind of the more traditional Linda, the west and east Linda, or historic Linda, whatever you want to, how you want to identify it, is all within District 1. And I can zoom in here if you'd like, but it follows the levee boundary and then along Riverside Drive.
First you shifted me out of there and then you want to put me back in there.
So that's why we have the two different options. Just trying to illustrate how best to balance out all of these different interests, because you have the need for equal population. You have the need to try and keep communities of interest whole. You have the need to try and balance out with all of the special districts and school districts and their their boundaries. And then it becomes a pretty complex equation when you take all of the factors, and we're doing our best. And so these two options that are being presented are kind of our first draft at trying to balance all of those needs. So I'm going to move, if it's okay, I'm going to move to District 3 and what that does for District 3. So in this scenario on District 3, because District 1 is not encroaching down here, that preserves more population in District 3 to the north, and by doing so, kind of enables the boundary between District 3 and District 4 to be kind of outside the Plumas Lake specific plan. So the boundary would be at Ella, and then down Arboga Road to Plumas Arboga Road. Would be kind of your boundary between those two districts. And
so population wise, where was the increase in population for District 3?
It was a big chunk of it was a population that in the other option that you lost to District 1 in the north. Okay. So you kind of gain that back in because
between last census and this census?
I see what you're saying.
Probably down on Arboga Road.
Yes, that the east side of Arboga Road, there was quite a bit of growth and since the last census, and then you had some growth even on the west side. Yeah, that's a good question as far as how does the math work? We can definitely double check the math, but according to the census. According to the guy, so as much as you trust the federal government for accurate information, this is.
Option 1 for me is staying more along the lines that we did 10 years ago, whereas 2, you're just flipping back to what I used to be in 09 and 10.
And so that's, if I could, I'll walk through the remainder of this, and that's what I wanted to talk through with the board. And really for today, it's not so much about the board saying we want option 1 or option 2. It's more of just feedback from the board along with feedback from the public, and then we'll take all of that feedback. And maybe there's an option 1A and 1B and 2A and 2B or whatever, and those are based on all of the feedback, and then the board can talk through that at the December 6th meeting and tell us of those, what's the preferred option so that we can have the board vote on that on December 14th. So what this option 2 illustrates is Plumas Lake is wholly in District 4 under this scenario, which means that District 4 then has to kind of take away some of the population that was over on the east side of the county, kind of balance that out, which was picked up by District 5. So I will zoom back out on this. Yeah, so getting back to kind of the themes. So the option 1 theme, let me see if it'll toggle okay here. The option 1 theme was, in essence, a continuation, starting with District 2, a continuation of what occurred in 2010, where District 2 had to go somewhere and District 2 went into a portion of West Linda. And so the option 1 is basically a continuation of that. It just having District 2 represent more of West Linda. Shoot, did I lose my, let's see here. And then option 2 is taking a look at some of that early feedback from the public, and what would that look like if District 2 didn't continue into West Linda and instead went to the north. And maybe I'll pause there. And
do we want to take public comment first, or do you want board probably public comment and then board comment?
Yeah, if we could.
Okay. So are we ready for that then?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So do we want to start with maybe public comment in the room, and then we'll go to public comment on Zoom? Is there public in the room that would like to make a comment? If so, we would ask that you please come up to the podium so that the folks on Zoom can hear you. The one over there should be fine too. Yeah. Just make sure you speak into the
I'm Kathleen
mic.
Leader, and I live in East Marysville. My brother Ray Pynchon is here. He lives on Cedar Lane, where Popularity is in. So we represent, District 2 right now. What we are concerned about, we kind of wonder if any consideration has been given to the number of Democrat and Republican in all this switch.
I believe one of the rules that he listed at the very beginning is they were not going to be looking at that. So we're not supposed to look at that. Is that right?
Right, we're not supposed to intentionally load a district one way or the other.
However, on the one option, you are heavily loading it when you put East and West Linda together. But Marysville has taken the strip between East and West Linda because they wanted the tax base from Walmart. So is that going to be addressed with Marysville and let them have that back if we go out and catch District 10? And are we going to have development out in District 10 then to compensate? What's going to happen? We need to look down the road at whole picture and not just a temporary fix.
Walmart is in an unincorporated area.
So what you're talking about, I think, is the city of Marysville wants that tax base.
Exactly.
And so this doesn't affect what the city limits are. This is for the voting district. So the city limits.
Exactly. But Marysville especially wanted that. And it is part of Linda.
They can't have it. They can't have it. It's unincorporated area. So they can't get it.
So anyway, is our tax base going to be affected at all?
No. So the district boundaries really just change who the supervisor is that represents that area.
Exactly.
It doesn't change school districts or what community you're in or anything like that. It really is just who represents you. And so, the goal is you have to make them fairly even, and then you want to try to keep communities together to the best of your ability.
Okay, the other thing is with the new development that's going on from Feather River Boulevard, Alicia, Cedar Lane, has that population been taken into consideration for this? Because it's just being built right now, but within a year or so, it should have a pretty substantial population.
Yeah, a very valid concern, and something that down in my district, and I live in Plumas Lake and represent Plumas Lake and Wheatland in District 4, and something that even since the census data, which was where people lived as of, I think, April 1st, 2020, there's been significant growth in Plumas Lake since that time. Right. We can't count those people. So we can't count the people, we can only count the people where they lived on April 1st, 2020. And while we can consider where future development might occur, we can't count those numbers.
But it's being developed right now.
But if it was after April, if those people were living in those facilities on April 1st, 2020, we can count them. Otherwise, we can't, unfortunately. But I certainly understand because I'm in the same situation. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any other public comments in person? Okay. I believe we have 2 on Zoom. Just 1 on Zoom. Okay. So Rick Teagarden.
You don't catch her in the hills.
Anymore?
Well, thank you. I'm not sure. Is it muted?
Nope, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, I listened to the State of the Education address this morning from YCOE, and it was very well done. And But on the redistricting component of it, you know, I live in District 5 and have for most of my life. And the option 2 changes so many things so radically that I don't feel like it is in the best interest of the entire county. For example, on YCOE, the Yuba County Office of Education, the elected officials that are currently serving and elected to serve on the Yuba County Board of Education, at least one of them would no longer be eligible to serve because it pushes that person out of their district. So I don't know if that's been considered or not, but I would strongly advocate for option 1. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Teagarden.
What was his name?
Any additional public comment on Zoom? Okay, Mary, if you could just call them out, that'd be great, since I can't see who has their hand raised. So.
Okay, Desiree.
Hi, I wanted to speak out in regards, I also emailed in, but I am in favor of example 2. I am also an elected member, and switching the districts would change the district that I am in if we went with example 1 instead of 2. But more importantly, I'm a realtor in the Plumas Lake area, and I do think it's incredibly important to keep the area of Plumas Lake together, because we already have such dividing lines between the north and the south area of Plumas Lake that separating our supervisor district between the north and the south Plumas Lake areas will further separate that divide. And I do think that would be incredibly detrimental to the community of Plumas Lake to do that.
Thank you, Desiree.
Thank you.
That is all. Okay, so I'll just ask one more time if there's anyone on Zoom or in the room that wishes to leave a public comment or make a public comment. If you're on Zoom, you can use the raise hand feature, or if you're calling in by phone, you can use *9. Anyone else? Okay, so we'll probably maybe go to board comment, and we'll just give each board member, we'll just go down the line and give each board member a chance to comment. Okay, so we'll start with Supervisor Vasquez.
Example 1 will have the least disruption of area, because I'm going back into areas of West Linda and it just kind of throws my campaign off, that's for sure. But whatever you decide, I'm all for it, but I prefer number 1.
So if I could, so today is really getting some preliminary feedback from the board members, and I would encourage each board member, you can use the interactive map, take a look at it. Are there things that that jump out at you, you know, that or maybe there's areas in your community where you might want to reach out to community members and let them know what's happening, just so we have as much input as possible. These are just preliminary illustrations, sure, to show how we could balance the population.
Like cutting the baby in half here, King Solomon, you know, but Gary and I have both had the biggest growth, Plumas Lake and Linda, and I worked real hard with some of these contractors here as far as getting stuff going on there. But whatever you guys decide, I'll serve.
So, Supervisor Blazer?
Maybe before it's whatever that ultimately the Board of Supervisors. Getting back to my process, so the 5 of you are going to need to vote on a preferred alternative by December 14th.
Okay.
And so we kind of have a tight timeline. So ideally on December 6th, the board's giving staff some direction on which one you would like staff to notice as the preferred option, and then you'll vote on it on December 14th.
Okay. My preferred option is number 1.
So if I understand this right, then the West Linda portion of District 2 would move into District 3 on option number 2.
I think most of it moves into actually District
1.
1. Most of it moves into District 1.
Yeah.
I get the people from West Linda back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I can.
Which is not a bad thing.
If you want, what I can do is, let me see if this will, if it'll work, stay zoomed in. I'm going to see if it'll let me toggle between the examples. Well, I kind of.
Fancy.
Yeah,
See?
fancy. So this is option 2. And so you have pretty much all of West Linda in District 1, along with a kind of historic Linda and then a portion of East Linda. And then in option 1, that's where it pretty much all of West Linda stays or goes to District 2, and then that means more of East Linda and a portion of kind of northern Olivers. I'm not sure if that's even a term, but it is now. Would go into District 1.
So I always felt that portion of West Linda, the demographics and the issues and everything match up better with maybe 3 or 1 than with 2. So I would be leaning towards example number 2, which would include some Hallwood and District 10, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. So I would lean in that direction.
I like West Linda, I'll take them. But my question is, if we can look at the original, I don't understand where my population, because I need 2,000 people is what I'm hearing. I assume most of it in option 2, that's all uninhabited where I spread up, and that's uninhabited for option 2. So I was just curious where it is. Do you have the original that we can look at for comparison?
Yes, let me see if what's the easiest way to, I think I can pull it up here. Make my own tools. How do I get started? Oh, resources and maps, there you go, sorry. Extra click. So here's existing, the existing boundary map for District 3. And
so all the stuff where I reached down further south of Wheeler Ranch, but not Wheeler Ranch, that is where the shift is then. Is that, no, I'm not following where my 2,000 more are.
So I think it's mostly on, I think you're getting a little bit on the north end in example 2 that you don't have currently. I'm not positive.
let me click back to this one. Oh,
Go to example 2. Maybe not.
example 2. So you're kind of squared off there at
I think you go a little bit further north,
or
but I'm not positive.
The extension of Earl Road, yeah, to Passado. So like, for example, there's a mobile home park right here, and I don't believe that was in before. I think that was kind of.
I see what you're saying. It doesn't seem like you're getting that.
Yeah, I just 2,000 people is what I need, right?
No, you don't. You didn't need 2,000 people. I believe you. I have to pull up the presentation unless Jamie has it off the top of her head. You grew slightly less than the other two, but I believe you were more on the like 800 people range.
Okay. Because you grabbed a bunch of people on Arboga Road from the new development that happened there.
Okay.
Yeah, in this area and in this area since 2010.
Jamie, you don't know everything off the top of your head?
You don't have the count of each census block yet memorized?
Right. So as far as, do you have any feedback then based on the two options, or?
I guess I'll look into it more.
Okay.
I'll take it all.
So usually, like when we do board comment, I go to Supervisor Fletcher next, but maybe since we're doing numeric districts, we can go to 4 after 3, and I'll steal the opportunity to talk next. I reached out to some public in my district on near the areas where I anticipated maybe the district would shrink or potentially grow, really asked them for their opinion and their feedback. And I got a lot of feedback from Wheeler Ranch, that area in northern Plumas Lake, that they're very interested in remaining part of District 4 and connected to Plumas Lake, that is part of their community of interest. And they felt that, you know, having the supervisor that represents Plumas Lake represent them as well is very important to them. And I certainly encourage them to email the county, and I think they have. I also had some interesting conversations with the residents out in the Camp Far West area. And I know in both of the proposed examples, the Camp Far West area is remaining in District 4. But I, you know, before we had draft maps, I wasn't sure if that was going to be the case. So I wanted to reach out to them and understand, you know, do they feel more connected and aligned to Wheatland, which is what their mailing address is, and where, you know, they would do most of their shopping and you know, so they have kind of a social and economic connection to the city of Wheatland. But their issues, and this kind of came out in the discussion I had with the residents, their issues are very much more foothill related than Wheatland, Plumas Lake, and the ag areas. I mean, lack of broadband, wildfires, underfunded CSAs and gravel roads. I mean, lots of things that Supervisor Fletcher knows a lot about. And so it was kind of an interesting conversation. And most folks did say they preferred to be, you know, represented by the supervisor who represents the Wheatland area. But I just wanted to kind of throw that out, you know, as far as their input. And so based on that, you know, I think map 2 really takes that input that I received from my constituents and really takes that into consideration for option 2. And so I think that's pretty important. So I would say, I think, you know, so some other, yeah. So I guess that'd be my primary input. I mean, there's a few things here and there, you know, that if I had the magic marker that I might change, but and just tweak a few things. But overall, I think it represents, you know, the community that I represent fairly well. So, and anyway, so Supervisor Fletcher.
Okay, time for the big dog to talk here, I guess, where all the land is. So I suspect that we actually need an option 3 and 4. Looking at the maps and trying to keep the continuity of the communities, some kind of consistency. I like the idea of Marysville expanding a bit to the north, but not as large as I see here. I think the foothills actually comes closer, if I were going to use a dividing line, would probably be the railroad tracks that head north, and everything west of the railroad tracks would probably be in the Marysville district. And that would increase their size. On the south side, I do believe that Camp Far West area would suit the 5th district better. And it would make sense to pick up that area. To compensate for that, then the more of the urban area in East Linda, I would dedicate to some other district, which would be the compensation. Clearly the development in the future is in the valley, not in the foothills. That's not where the foothills is designed to go. I don't see it happening in the next 10 years. Beyond that, who knows? But if I were going to modify it a bit, I'd like to see what those numbers really look like if you took that kind of map. And again, I'll probably have to play with it a bit myself and just kind of bring it back in some kind of an order. Unfortunately, the 5th district, I don't see any other way, but it's going to grow in size to still remain in the numbers that are appropriate. Initially, even if the numbers were a little bit larger in the 5th district, within a number of years, you're going to find the population is growing down below, which will balance that out. So those were my thoughts today. Someone's going to need that.
Well, and, you know, and I guess one thing maybe to look at talking about, you know, a third option might be, you know, if you did extend the 5th district a little further to the west, in the north part of the county and a little further to the south in the east part of the county. And then obviously maybe, you know, back out of the East Linda area, and then a little bit, you know, give, you know, more of that to I would assume District 1, but then obviously, you know, what do you do in on the other side of the freeway? You know, and if I need to grow a little bit too, right? I mean, I could maybe push to the north a little, and District 3 could push to the north a little, and then I think the question is, what do you do with District 2? I guess that's the challenge. If you take that approach, it seems kind of gets squeezed in there. I'm not sure.
Maybe if I could, so that I believe the railroad track that is this line right here. The community of Hallwood is in here. Would you see something like the railroad track and then Woodruff Lane and then along the highway, maybe something along? I'm just trying to, so that I can understand.
Well, until you actually use the numbers, I don't know exactly where the population is, but use any of those areas by adjusting. If you were to use the railroads completely south and everything to the west, that's a simple map. But what does that mean in numbers? Right. And then to pick up numbers, you may have to cut it in there somewhere and adjust appropriately. I'm kind of thinking that Hallwood still fits within the 5th district, but if you got to balance the numbers, then that's what you have to do.
The green section west and north of Linda, there's nobody living in any of that area, right?
That's essentially river bottom. So you're right. I think it was the way that the census blocks were formed. And so for our first draft, you could easily cut it off.
I was just curious.
But it doesn't change.
I didn't have a lot of constituents down there that I recalled.
No, there's plenty of orchards.
All right.
So under that scenario where there's a portion of this of District 2 that goes away, I guess that would be the question if we were going to do a third option. Does it push back into West Linda? Maybe you leave that portion of West Linda as is, and then they'd have to represent East Linda, or does it make more sense for whatever's pushed back into Linda for District 2 that it's in one area, you know, whether it's east or west?
I think.
Where's the Habitat buildings at? Is that in the blue or pink right now? It's in the blue, right?
Are you referring to the sweat equity? Well, there's a couple different Habitat projects, but they're building single family homes out here, okay. and then
that's the one I was talking about.
Okay. Yes. So staff will work on that, and I can already see where we can have a 2A, 2B scenario.
Okay. Additional comments from the board? Clearly directed, right? With 5 different opinions plus the public.
It's no easy task, right? I understand. And this is my third one. Now, when we did it after the 2000 census, it was pen and paper and a little bit of computer. 2010, a little bit better. It's nice that now there's more interactive tools out there that people can play around with. And I'd encourage the board members to go on that redistricting website as well. And you'll be able to pull up these 2 options and use a tool, and you can move the boundaries around yourself just to kind of see how it affects the population.
So that tool is on the Yuba County website?
Yes, it's on our redistricting. Is it live now?
I played with it a little last night. Russ gave me a heads up. He'd posted it, and you know, it actually works a little easier than the tool I had played with before. And Russ did all the work. I mean, he's got the maps pre-populated in there. You just have to kind of create an account and then click on the link and copy the map into your account, and then you can play with it.
Oh, you lost me after the first step.
And we can go down to
Russ has instructions on the website.
Some of the districts, right?
That sounds like a county council question, going from 5 to 3.
Just go down to 3 supervisors, then it'll be easier to divvy it up.
I don't know. The fact that every county has 5, I imagine it's in state statute somewhere, but council would know that. Yeah.
We'll just be a constitutional republic or something.
Works for Oroville, right?
So on our redistricting website, there's a build your own map. And when you click on it, it goes to this that Russ Brown, our public information officer, was just mentioning. And that it has kind of the steps you go through, and you can use the districtbuilder.org website. We already have kind of those two optional maps pre-populated in there, and you can take those and then manipulate and you can be able to resubmit that back to the county.
The 20 pieces of correspondence you received, if you can send me the ones that are relevant to me.
Yes, yeah, and as far as we're definitely gathering those up. I actually don't believe we've received any email correspondence yet relative to District 3. District. Yep.
I imagine that some of the ones that are 4 would still be relevant to the ranch.
Right. Yes, you're right. They're an existing District 4 residents, but they'd be relevant. Yep.
I did hear, I think they were going to send an email, but while we're on that topic, I did hear from I don't know if it's District 10 or Foothill resident, but they did express support for having District 10 be part of the Marysville district as opposed to the Foothill district. And someone else reached out to me and expressed support for having West Linda be represented by either the Oliver supervisor or the East Linda supervisor as opposed to the Marysville supervisor. So kind of, support for that idea that, District 10 is more closely aligned with Marysville than maybe with the Foothills, and the same with West Linda, that they're more aligned with folks south of the river than with Marysville. I think we have an additional public comment though. Would you like to come up and?
Okay, Kathy Leader again. Another concern I have, which is not with the voting area, but per se, but the Highway 70 as it goes through the unincorporated area between East and West Linda and then comes through Marysville. We have some major traffic problems, major, that we share because from about 3:30, 3:45 on to after 5 o'clock, traffic south of town may be blocked clear down to Oliver's. Right. And that cuts off his entrance from the West Linda area on. Marysville, when I need to go either south or over to Yuba City, we get an area that is blocked.
Yeah.
And it would be really nice to have people from both areas that could get together and petition Caltrans, let them know what our problems are and push for.
Yeah. So we can't really delve into that. That's not an agendized item right now at this part of the meeting. So we're prohibited from talking about it. But I think everyone sitting up here would agree with you that that's a need in the community.
Exactly.
And we talked about something earlier, even it's an earlier part of our meeting. So.
Yeah. Thanks.
So Kevin, on the website, does it indicate that this really is only a districting issue? Doesn't talk about taxes, doesn't have any relevance, and somewhere on there that it is a full board that represents the entire county, that you have a district, that you represent a district, but you're also a county supervisor first. Might be worthwhile to make that statement somewhere on that website.
We've talked internally about that, making sure that people know that changing the district boundaries doesn't change your zip code, your community name, like all those type of things. This is just about equal representation, so that there's 5 people representing equal population for the county as a whole. Great. As you make decisions.
Good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Just one last check, I guess, Mary. Is there anyone on Zoom that wishes to make a comment before I close the public hearing? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. And if there's nothing else from Kevin or the board, we will adjourn the meeting. Is it?
And I guess just kind of stay tuned. So we will take this input and as soon as possible, try to put out another option so that there's adequate time for the public to digest.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank
As
you.
long as you don't get more than 2 or
Meeting
3
adjourned.
blocks either way in my district.
Andy wants to run for the foothills. That's what I'm hearing.
Okay.
Yeah, you're about ready to do that.
Well, it might take longer
All
than
right.
that, but we'll try.